Okay, so let me begin. Thank you, Anne, for hosting us here at Mount St. Mary's, where you are raising and birthing great women leaders, so thank you for that. A thank you to my friend Shonda Rhimes for agreeing to be a part of this conversation series. The Architect of Change Conversation Series is a conversation series in pursuit of the common good. What is the common good? It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about us. Architects of change, like Shonda, are people who see things, as Anne said, as they are and say, it can be better. And that's really what's uniting, I think, everybody in this room. You all kind of agreed to intentions. You all agreed to come here with open minds and open hearts. And you also agreed that you wanted to be part of a community that can think about how we can see the world better. So kudos to all of you. And today you will be on time. That's part of the goal of an Architect of Change conversation, is that we move it along. And hopefully you will be informed, you'll be inspired, and I hope it will make you aware that you are that person, that you have the power to actually create the change you want to see in the world. So that's what this is about. We're going to talk for about 40 minutes, quick, and then we're going to open up to questions. And off we go, and I'm going to put my glasses on because I read this entire book and I underlined it. And it's great, and she just told me it's number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. So there you go. So I'm going to begin by reading the last, end of the book, and we're going to go from there. And it says...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. It says, which I liked, "The one thing I have learned is that I don't know anything. If someone had told me that Thanksgiving morning, 2013, that I would be an entirely different person today, I would have laughed in their face. And yet, here I am, 127 pounds thinner. Several toxic people lighter. Closer to my family, a better mother, a better friend, a happier boss, a stronger leader, a more creative writer, a more honest person, both with myself and with everyone else in my life. More adventurous, more open, braver, and kinder to others, but also to myself. The cruelty with which I treated myself is no longer tolerated." Okay. That's a lot of change because we're almost at Thanksgiving 2015. That's rapid change. You talk about it, Shonda, it started with a moment from your sister who said to you, you never say yes to anything. That landed, and with one small decision, you began to totally transform your life.
Absolutely. It was really surprising to me and very shocking that those words would catapult something that big. And a very small decision that I would say yes to everything that scared me, that made me feel afraid, that made me feel nervous. I was just going to try it. And I thought, well, we'll see what happens. I thought it was going to be small. It turned out to really and truly be life-changing.
When you said you started with something small, so many people feel like the problems of the world are so big and we can't do anything. And you said, I just want to do one small thing, and it changed everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't like who you were, you said in the beginning.
I was very unhappy, and it felt embarrassing to be unhappy when you're supposed to have everything, when you're supposed to be living this life that everybody assumes is so amazing and so big and so full of things. And I realized that I was doing nothing but going to work and coming home, and that was it. I wasn't socializing with anybody. I wasn't talking to anybody. I spent most of my time in my sweatpants. Literally, if I wasn't writing, I was miserable. And that's unconscionable, really. Like, why am I living that way? And the idea that my world had become smaller and smaller and smaller, I had pared it down, was sad. I'd taken myself out of the world, basically.
And so by saying, I want to say yes, whether it's, you said, I want to say yes to speaking at Dartmouth. You had graduated from Dartmouth yourself, and you said that once you made this decision to say yes, the first call in came from Dartmouth and said, we want you to be the graduation speaker. And you were like, uh-oh, but yes.
Yeah. I was terrified of public speaking, and the idea that I would get up in front of people and give a speech, but also give a speech that reveals myself was very terrifying. That I would give an honest speech that wasn't just full of, the same cliches you say at every speech, was really scary to me. But it was also incredibly freeing when I did it.
You talk in the book about kind of living, you say I'm a liar, I make stuff up, and you gave all the qualities that you wanted in yourself to the characters you created on the show, but they were who you wanted to be, but you couldn't be.
Yeah, I always say I would test drive any courageous things I did through Christina Yang or Meredith Grey or Olivia Pope, or Dr. Bailey. It was very easy. Yeah. I would be angry at somebody and Dr. Bailey would tell them off. And it worked for a while. I was test driving the way I wanted to live with Christina Yang a lot. The idea that you could be powerful and you could be ambitious and completely unapologetic about it, that was Christina, but that was also me. And I was very quiet about it in my life, the idea that those things were important to me and those things were interesting. I mean, we're all supposed to want, we've been told we're supposed to want, and none of those things seem to fit into the puzzle that was me.
You talk, let me begin when you go to the Dartmouth speech, and what I loved about that was that you said that you had been so nervous about public speaking, and I think that's something that a lot of people can identify with, and that you rewrote your speech, you rewrote it on the plane going there, and when you stepped up onto the stage, you took a deep breath, and all the fear went away, and you became, for the first time, really in yourself and comfortable.
Yeah, you can see it on the video. There's whatever the YouTube video is, you can see the moment of like the last second of me being afraid of public speaking. I exhale and it's gone. And it's because I stood up on that stage and I looked at all those kids and I thought, 20 years ago, I sat there and I was them, and in 20 years, at some point, they'll be me. And this is not about me, it's about them. Like, I'm giving them something that they need to go out into the world. This has nothing to do with how I feel. You have to take it off of yourself. And it was a really freeing feeling to be giving it to somebody else and not making it about yourself.
And all of these are confidence builders. Every step forward into a yes is a step forward into who you actually are.
Yeah, I said it was like a snowball rolling down a hill. Every yes became bigger and sort of makes you stronger and more willing to try something different. And it started with things like public speaking or doing an hour-long Jimmy Kimmel special, and then it became more personal.
Tell me what it became.
It became things like I started to look into work. It became how I was going to change my work life, which felt very intense, and I was spending all of my time doing it. And I tried to think about how I was going to cut down on that. And I decided that I would put a little thing on my emails that said I was not going to answer anybody's emails after 7 p.m. ever. And that if they worked for me, I would suggest that they also put down their phone. And that actually was great for me, but it was also great for everybody who worked for me and with me, because it gave them permission to let go too. I think we all spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week thinking we're supposed to be on. And that's toxic. It just is. So that was something that we put in.
I think what's really interesting and important here is that one decision by a woman, a leader, then has a ripple effect in the type of culture that is in your company, because you gave people permission not to receive emails after 7 for yourself. It had a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really kind of such an important lesson. Now, so many people make commitments like, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to change things, I'm not going to answer emails, I'm going to be more focused on my children, on my life, and then they fall back.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all done it. I've done it myself many times, and today I'm going to do this, and I fall back. How did you not fall back? What was the approach this time that was different from the other times?
Nothing was absolute. I always just said, and this is, I'm a Catholic girl, so this is going to go, I think people will understand.
Yeah, Catholic girls.
I kind of decided it was going to be a little bit like a religion. You have to practice it. And nobody's a perfect Catholic. Nobody's a perfect, practicer of anything. So I was going to practice it. And so when I failed, but that didn't mean it was over.
You didn't go to confession when you failed.
No. But it didn't mean it was over. You know,
Right.
it felt like before, if you messed up once, it was over. You know, if I ate a piece of fried chicken, well, then it was over. I'd eaten the fried chicken, so now the diet was over. If I, stayed late at work and I didn't do that, well, then that idea was over. Now it was like the idea that I was going to go home at 7, that's a practice. That's canon, that's text. So if I didn't do it once, that didn't mean it was over. It just meant that one time it didn't happen, but I had to go back to it.
And then I think you talk a lot in the book, and I think this is something that resonates with so many of us, that inner critic, you're not good enough, you failed, you're not a good enough mother, you're not a good enough person, is rampant or was rampant in you. How did you silence that? So like you ate the fried chicken, you suck, like I would do that. Yeah, and then you're like, okay, I ate the fried chicken, I might as well eat a pint of, ice cream, then I might as well, and then the circle begins, I can't do anything, I'm a loser, and then there it goes.
But it's true, I think we all have that in us, and I am an extraordinarily competitive person. We have so many similarities. I come from a big family. My big family is very competitive. We're literally not allowed to play Scrabble in my house because of fights that break out. My mother's like, you're not allowed. And because of that competitiveness, I'm really hard on myself. And I'm the youngest of 6, so I've sort of been the bottom of that competitiveness, and so you're always pushing harder. That thing makes you intense, and it makes you really, really sort of OCD and hard on yourself. Part of what I tried to do was let it be okay to mess up and give myself permission and think, how would I treat somebody else? Why could I treat other people better than I could treat myself? Because I could fight for anybody who worked for me. I could gladiate for anybody at work and tell anybody off for anybody else. I could treat anybody else wonderfully. But when it came to myself, I let people treat me like crap, and I treated myself that way. And it felt like I respected myself far less than I respected everybody else. And so I just tried to respect myself.
Easier said than done. How do you begin to, quote, respect yourself?
A little bit of it was the self-care. The more you say yes and the more you realize that you're succeeding and that you're overcoming something, the better you feel, the more powerful you feel, the more successful you feel, and the better you feel about yourself, honestly. When I conquered being afraid of public speaking, I started to feel like, oh, I'm good at that. Okay, well, it works. You start to feel like you're in control as opposed to feeling like it's just set that you're a loser or something.
I think it was interesting, in the book, Shonda writes about the concept of power, being comfortable with your own power, your own light, with somebody complimenting you, and how very much so women, when they're said, oh, you're fantastic, you're a great mom, you're a great worker, you go, no, I'm a part of a team, don't worry about it, and, I just, no, and you write a lot about that, about stepping into saying, it's okay, yeah, I did that, and that's an okay thing. In fact, that's what, you say, we spend a lot of money on therapy or others telling us that that's okay, and yet when it comes our way, we deny it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we say, oh, it wasn't me, because we think that people will think that we like ourselves or that we're into ourselves or that we think we're so great. And we do. We hire people to help us think that we like ourselves and that we're into ourselves and that we're so great. We spend money on that. And for me, I watch it happen all the time, and people would compliment me and say, I love your shows, and I'd be like, oh, I'm just so lucky, and it's everybody else. And it is everybody else, but it's also me. And why is it hard to say that? And I started to really think about, like, Serena Williams doesn't worry that we're all going to think that she's too into herself if she says, I'm the best tennis player in the world, because she's Serena Williams. And the reason why is because in order to be Serena Williams, in order to compete at that level, she has to believe that she's the best tennis player in the world. And so you have to give yourself permission to want to be that person and to allow yourself to go there. And when other people are complimenting you, I came to this idea that you're insulting the person who's giving you the compliment when you deny their compliment. They don't have to give you the compliment. They've gone out of their way to say something kind to you. And then you've basically said, you're wrong. You're not smart. You're an idiot. And that's unkind. You're insulting them.
One of the other areas that I think will resonate so much as where we are unkind to one another is when it comes to motherhood.
Yeah.
And you write a lot about this, about the, quote, mommy wars, who's the better mommy, who's baking the most, who's at the school the most, who's better. And that you tell a really good story, I think, where a woman said to you when you were about to have your first child, and they said, are you getting a baby nurse for that child? And you're like, I don't need a nurse. Like, what are you talking about? I don't need any help. I got this. And how you shamed that woman.
Yeah.
And she never spoke to you again. And then you went and hired somebody to help you. That you really want this kind of thing we do to each other when it comes to how we're mothering or how we're taking care of our communities, even if you're not a biological mother, even if you don't have children, you mother. And that we're so competitive that way and how destructive it is to other women.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on the same side of the same army. You know, the kids are over there, we're over here. Really, it feels like we spend our time judging each other and who's done something wrong and who's not doing it well. And I think that's because we're all afraid that we're not doing it well. And the reality of it is nobody knows what they're doing. There is no handbook, there is no manual. Our parents didn't have one either. But we're all here and we turned out fine, so I don't know why we think that there are rules now. And it really feels sad to me that we tell other women, how dare you have help, or how dare you stay home, or how dare you bring baked goods, or how dare you bring the baked goods from the store. It really feels like you're setting people apart from one another as opposed to saying, it doesn't matter how you do it, we're all doing the same thing and we're all doing it as well as we can. Like, the judging is useless.
You said that you were talking to your sister and you said, well, you know, I can't do all these things and everything because I'm a single mom. And your sister was like, I mean, are you going to pull that card?
Yeah.
That you're maybe a, quote, single mom in, quote, reality, but culturally and everywhere else, you are not.
Yeah, she sort of raised her eyebrow at me, and I instantly felt shame. It's an excuse I pull on my family a lot. I'm a single mom. And I'm not a single mom by any real definition of the word. I'm not struggling to put food on anybody's table. I'm not, working, overtime to make sure that my kids have what they need. I haven't been left financially in a place in which I've really got to have another income, and I'm doing my best to make ends meet. And it's very shameful to sort of suggest I am, but I like to lie. So I put that in there.
And she has a lot in there about the woman named Jenny McCarthy who helps her, which I think is a really great shout out to, like, I'm not in this alone. Here's another person who's helping me. And one of the things I think that architects of change do is that they give a shout out to people who are helping them pursue the common good, and then they pay them a living wage, whether it's somebody helping you with your children or your parents.
Yeah.
Which
I think that's very important.
Very important.
I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge the fact that you have help, to pay the people who help you a wage that makes sense, to make sure that they have health insurance as best you can, to do all of that stuff right, and to treat them with the dignity and respect that you would want to be treated. Yeah. I am so grateful. I feel like it's a feminist, march going on in my house. The women in my house who help me not live in filth and die and starve to death, basically, and help me like my village. Those women, I am employing a bunch of women, and we together are making my house run and raise my kids and making it possible for me to write these shows that people watch. That's what's happening, and they're part of that system.
Shonda also writes in the book something that I really liked, because we talk about, once again, architects of change, pursuing the common good, building a better world. And one of the things you talk about is wanting to raise good citizens. And I think that that's really powerful. Because what is a good citizen? There's so little, I feel, in this country today that unites us. Everything is about what divides us. And one of the principles of this series is to be more compassionate, caring, and conscious citizens. What does it mean to you to raise a good citizen? Are you doing that? And are you successful so far in that?
I hope so. I mean, part of the year of yes was realizing that being so disconnected from the world meant that you're not You're not a citizen of the world. The more I said yes, the more you become aware of the world around you, the more you connect with people, and the more I wanted my children to be part of it. You know, just teaching them history and about the world was not the same as, you know, taking your children to go volunteer someplace so that they can see it with you and watch you do something, the example that you're setting. Talking to them about things, focusing on the right things. It's so easy to focus on the competitive mothering and all of those things that seem very important and not focus on the values and the ethics and the morals that you want your child to have as being much more important than any of that stuff.
We talk about being a conscious idealist, someone who is aware of the world around them, but also positive, enthusiastic about being a part of it to make it better.
Yeah, one of the things that I did, and this is that in a lot of ways, that I felt like was one of the biggest things I did, was that my kids would come up to me and say, Mom, do you want to play? And I would be on my way out the door, or I'd be running someplace. And at a certain point, I realized that they were going to see the back of my head more than they saw me. And it was sort of devastating. And I decided that every single time, because I have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 13-year-old. Yeah. So I decided
Single mom.
Yeah. So I decided that every single time one of my kids said to me, want to play, I would drop whatever I was doing and I would play with them. They only ever want to do it for 15 minutes. But I could be walking out the door to an award ceremony in an evening gown, or I could be on my way to the airport, or I could be going to work. And I have given myself permission to drop what I'm doing and go and play.
What I liked about the end of the book is you talk about becoming a kinder person to yourself and others, a better leader in your company and in the world. I think people feel like to be a leader, you have to be a Shonda Rhimes, or you have to be in politics, or you have to be, you know, somebody that they don't feel they are. What makes a good leader in your mind? What have you learned about leadership? And what is a takeaway for people here about a first step towards being a better leader?
I don't think that you have to be me. I really only feel like I started truly learning how to be a leader about 2 or 3 years ago, partially when this process started, when I got braver about it. I think it's a willingness to really delve into this stuff, to have the difficult conversations. That's another part of the book, of really being willing to have those conversations that nobody wants to have, that we spend all of our time avoiding, sitting down with the people you work with and saying, here's the deal, or what's going on, or, you know, all of those things that we spend all of our time avoiding, just jumping right in. And those things solve problems, those things make life so much easier, those things cross bridges in ways that you never thought would happen. That, for me, has been the single greatest thing that has changed the way I work with everybody, because now everyone feels like, A, I'm going to tell them the truth, and B, they can tell me anything. I love the idea that I'm not somebody that they're afraid of.
You talk in the book about that you used to shy away from difficult conversations, and that you realized that the more you wanted to say something, but you didn't, so you ate it.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, you ate it to numb it, right? And that the first time you actually said to somebody like, that doesn't work for me, or you gave yourself permission to say no in the year of yes, that all of a sudden you felt free. People are afraid to say, that doesn't work for me, or no, because they'll lose a friend. Mm-hmm. They may lose a spouse. They may lose a child. Tough love, as we call it, or saying, that doesn't work for me, is a really hard thing to say.
But the thing that we fear will happen, you're still fearing it while you're avoiding it. So the entire time you're not having the conversation or saying the thing you need to say, you're basically terrified that that thing's going to happen. So it's in there and on you and pressing on you. And for me, I was just eating a whole lot of stuff. But once you have the conversation, I had one really hard conversation that ended with a really close friend of mine just saying some of the worst things to me I never heard anybody say. And instead of feeling awful, I found myself feeling invigorated and relieved and a little bit exhilarated, because I had told her how I felt and she had told me who she was. And now that I knew that, I was like, this is like a superpower, because you unmask people immediately, and that was such a relief and felt so simple. Across the field of a difficult conversation lies peace.
You talk in the book about getting rid of a lot of these fears, getting rid of the fear of public speaking, of having a difficult conversation, of actually admitting that you like to be seen.
Yeah.
That I thought was a really talk about that a little bit. I think it goes to the, like, I'm no one, don't worry about me, I'm over here in the corner. And your realization that, you know what, I like it. I want to be seen. So this kind of, I don't like power, I don't like to be seen thing, that's a lie to myself.
We're supposed to want to, I don't know, make ourselves smaller and be hidden and not be looked at. I mean, I talk about greeting cards. There's all the greeting cards that you see in the world, especially the ones about Mother's Day, are, Mother, you did so much for me and nobody noticed you. Mother, you were the wind beneath my wings. Mother, you sacrificed so much and were so quiet and lovely. And literally there's an entire industry built on, Mother, you were a shrinking violet. We stood on your shoulders and we treated you badly.
And we
love
you.
Right, but we love you. And I think the idea that we're celebrating women for shrinking and standing in the shadows and making themselves less than is awful. That is certainly not the message I want to give to my daughters. It's certainly not the kind of kid I want to raise. It was certainly not the woman I was raised by. You know, I keep saying, like, why don't we have greeting cards that say, you know, Mother, thank you for teaching me how to earn money. Thank you for teaching me how to speak up for myself. Thank you for teaching me how to not back down. Like, those things would be much better cards than the ones that are out there right now.
The other thing, one of the other things that I thought was great in talking about the dart in the speech, I'm bouncing back to the beginning a little bit, is that you talk about, you know, a lot of us sit there and we dream. You had a dream you wanted to be Toni Morrison. You are dreaming, right? All of us, you know, have some dream or another, and you're like, stop the dreaming, become a doer. Because what you need to do is do your thing, because Toni Morrison already has that job. And I think that there's some grief that goes with, like, not achieving your dream, or saying, you're asking me to give up on my dream? Talk about, like, putting the dream over here and becoming a doer, regardless of what the doer is doing.
The idea that you're going to have this dream, this fantasy that sort of sits there as what you want to be, it's very lovely. But often it doesn't really have anything to do with your skills, your goals, or your reality. I wanted to be Toni Morrison, and no. And so the idea that that was a thing that I wanted was lovely, but in pursuit of becoming Toni Morrison, if you're not doing anything about it, if you're just sort of looking at it as this ideal, nothing's going to happen. So in pursuit of becoming Toni Morrison, instead of just sitting around wishing I could be a thing that I couldn't be, wishing you could be a fairy princess, wishing you could be rich, wishing you could be married to, I don't know, Idris Elba, whatever it is you want. Instead of doing that, I just decided to take every opportunity that came my way that felt like it was getting me somewhere, as opposed to staying in one place waiting for my dream to come true. So if somebody offered me a job, I took it. If I got into film school, I went. I wasn't going to become a novelist in film school, but I got into film school, so I went. If I got a job doing, as an assistant, I took that job. If somebody wanted me to pour coffee, I poured that coffee the best way I could. And I kept taking those steps, because if you didn't do that, what was the alternative? Standing still.
I think that's a really good thing for people who have children coming out of college, like myself, who are all dreaming, I'm going to be that app and I'm going to be Mark Zuckerberg. I'm like, but in the meantime, get a job. Right? Yeah. But, so I think that's I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote you.
Because unless you're Prince William, you really need to get a job.
What about the girls that want to marry Prince Harry?
Oh, no. Get a job, too.
Get a job. One of the things that Shonda and I have in common, and when you talk about moving through all your fears in this book, I mean, a lot of them, and it really is an easy and fast read, but one of the areas that we have in common is we're both in this fight to defeat Alzheimer's. We're both very committed to it. We're both want to try to find a cure. We want to raise money for research, and part of the proceeds of this event today will go towards A Woman's Nation, which is challenging scientists and researchers and doctors all over the world to research women's brains, because women are at the epicenter of Alzheimer's. The ones who get it, you're twice as likely to get Alzheimer's in your early 60s as you are to get breast cancer. And this is a little-known fact, and women are at the epicenter when it comes to caregiving, leaving jobs, young women, and women of all ages. So one of the things that we're united in is this fight, but you talk about in the book that you are terrified of getting Alzheimer's, and that's one fear you haven't conquered.
No, it's my greatest fear, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Anytime I forget a word or something in a sentence, and I don't know if this happens to other women, but yeah, it really does feel like that's the start of something. And you know, it sounds funny, but if you are I'm the grandchild of somebody who had Alzheimer's, and if you've seen it happen up close, you know what happens and what it looks like. And so for me, every single time that happens, there's a part of me, and yes, I'm a horrible hypochondriac because I write a medical show, but if you see anything happen like that, you really do start to think, and your fears really do start to come to the surface every time something like that happens.
So the best way is to join us instead of being afraid of it. Yesterday I was like this, I cannot find my glasses. I cannot find my glasses. Yeah, I was like, where are my glasses?
I have done that with the watch on my arm.